Forkast.News is your gateway to all things blockchain. We do the deep dive and the due diligence on the blockchain projects and platforms that matter, because we aim to be the most reliable source of intellectual discourse and insight that inform, educate, and bridge the gap between the blockchain industry and the mainstream. Welcome to Forkast.News in conversation with a very special edition. I'm Editor-in-Chief Angie Lau. I am sitting next to Changpeng Zhao, or better known as CZ, CEO and co-founder of Binance. So welcome to Forkast.News.
Thank you for having me here.
It is a very interesting space in which we find ourselves. We are here in Taipei at the Asia Blockchain Summit. There are thousands of people here. They're buzzing about it. Now, you're one of the more, one could say, most influential and vocal in the space.
Okay.
You're influential, you're vocal. What is it about crypto and blockchain that you see?
I think that's obviously the future. I think basically whatever people felt about internet in, say, 1995, we're kind of feeling it right now for blockchain. I think the future holds so much potential that we don't even understand right now. So people are just sort of imagining what kind of applications we can build with the blockchain technology. It's not a technology that solves every problem, but it's a technology that will significantly improve many of the tough problems we have today, especially regarding to finance, to fundraising, to all of our well-being. So it does solve many difficult problems. So the future is limitless. Yeah.
It's limitless, but you see a lot of potential right now in the crypto exchange space.
Yeah.
What are you building at Binance, as you say?
Sure. I mean, we have two parallel tracks, right? So we have the centralized exchange, which is our main business, which is Binance.com, which is one of the world's largest crypto exchanges. It's easy to use, it's fast, it's got very high liquidity, low fees, etc. But we do need to hold custody of the funds. So at the same time, we're building a decentralized exchange where we no longer hold custody of the funds at all. So you can plug in your hardware wallet, go to a website, and then start to trade. So when you go to the website, you're actually not trading on the website. The website is just an interface to the blockchain. You're trading on the blockchain, holding your own funds, and there's no concept of even an account. So it's just an address trading against another address. Or it's just a private key that you control on your device that never leaves your device. It's not even on your laptop. So this way now you have full control of your funds and trade very freely. The DEX is a new project that the liquidity is a little bit lower right now.
You're talking about Binance DEX?
Binance DEX, right? But I do think that's the future. So we're spending a lot. I'm spending a lot of my time on both. But the DEX is a community project. I mostly give like advices and ideas. I'm the ambassador, so I'm the loud guy who's doing all the talking.
Well, the loud guy that does all the talking, that really represents the promise or sees and vocalizes about the promise of blockchain. And you have your critics, including Nouriel Roubini, who very much stated that there is a problem with the industry. He calls you guys snake oil salesmen, uses very colorful language. How do you respond to those type of criticisms that are based on issues that are very real? Issues like wash trading and front running and pump and dump schemes. These are things that have been criticisms and real problems in the industry. How does Binance address those?
Sure. I think in every industry there are issues. So we're not ignoring that the issues doesn't exist. We're not in a perfect world. We're not using a perfect technology that does not have no limitations or no flaws. It's not so much that technology is flawed. In traditional markets, there's wash trading, there's front running, there's all these issues. You just got to deal with these issues. The technology is a significant improvement based on traditional technologies. So Nouriel does a bunch of stuff that I don't really understand, to be honest. I don't know why he comes to conferences like this, spending days of his life just to trash talk about the specific industry of the conference is trying to promote. So I guess the conference organizers wants a different type of opinion. He's kind of an interesting character. But net, I think we got to look at this. There is utility value in this fundamental technology. So as I said before, it doesn't solve every problem. It's not perfect. But it's so useful. It's useful enough that it'll create a whole new future.
But one of the things about providing liquidity and providing a platform is transparency of the market. But how do you have fairness to your investors, to retail investors on the platform, if there is pump and dump, if there is front running, and if there is faking of transaction volumes? Those are real issues.
Yeah. So I think basically there's a few different factors. There are exchanges who do very minimal. We actually spend a lot of time fighting with watch trading from project teams. So the project teams want to promote their trading volume to be ranked higher on the exchange. So we actually do a lot of things to fight that. We have a lot of clarity in the data because we can see who's trading on the centralized exchange. So we actually do a lot of work to fight that. And second is the retail traders are getting smarter, and there are more industry reports about different behaviors. In every report, Binance is reported as the highest real volume exchange by far. So Bitwise has a report, many other organizations issue reports. So we do very well. So even though this happens in the industry, it doesn't happen. I wouldn't say it never happens on Binance. It does, but we try very hard to fight it. So we're pretty clean. There's nothing 100%. The third aspect is with DEX, for example, you can see exactly which accounts are trading, even though you don't know who they are. But it's so much harder to do this watch trading, to do this fake volumes on DEX. So with DEX, now you can identify addresses for trading, which you can't do on centralized exchanges. So this, I think, will bring a new level of transparency in the industry. You will solve a lot of the older, intransparent, like opaque problems that we have.
Does it also solve the regulatory problem of KYC and AML?
No, it doesn't. Because there's no concept of accounts. So today, if you start your on any Ethereum DEX, somebody create a smart contract that trade, and it's completely decentralized. So I don't know how that will work yet, and I don't know how the regulators will regulate that. But the technology now allows you to just trade with addresses without doing KYC and ML, and it's in a fully decentralized network that no one controls.
Yeah.
So today you can transfer Bitcoins from one address to another. Those addresses doesn't have to go through KYC.
Are you, though, increasingly finding yourself on the other end of that conversation with regulators? FATF just came out. They want KYC AML for any transaction of $1,000 US.
Yeah.
That's a very low threshold.
Yes.
And that's something that you're required to do by law.
Yeah. Well, actually, FATF is not law. FATF is a guideline advisory organization, which are very influential. I think it's up to the countries to implement them. But I think very important to the FATF regulation or the proposal. I don't think they really understand It's kind of obvious to me that the guys who made those regulations may not understand crypto that well. Today, you can transfer billions of dollars on Bitcoin blockchain without any KYC and ML. No one's in charge. There's no information to share. No one has that information other than the sender. So I don't know how they're going to achieve that. So just requiring virtual currency service providers to provide this information is actually only a very small portion of the transactions that's involved. And when you have that kind of strong limitations on the service providers, what's going to happen is everything's just going to move from the centralized service providers to onto on-chain, completely anonymized, completely decentralized. There's no information. So what the end result of that may be that they actually have less information because they're so strict and they're going to push away all the activity. So I think they're not thinking through the secondary effects of what that regulation or the impact of that regulation.
So it would be the equivalent of everybody wanting shoes, but then telling the shoe store that they have to be very restrictive on who they can sell shoes to.
Yeah.
But meanwhile, that's just one portal to an entire market of people wanting shoes or Bitcoin or cryptocurrency, whatever that asset is.
So basically, in theory, I think what the FATF wanted to do is to say any transaction that's over $1,000, you have to provide KYC. But they can only apply that to the centralized service providers. They're ignoring or just sort of blind to the 90% that are fully look at Bitcoin, right? There's transactions on Bitcoin blockchain. You can't request that information. Are
you forced to be compliant?
Yes. So I think we have many regulated entities that are. We will see which every country. My understanding is every country is going to implement this slightly differently, and none of the countries have came out right away yet. But I think in the next few months or year, there will probably be regulations coming out. We have many exchanges in legalized or in full compliant jurisdictions, and we'll have to follow whatever the rule is. But that will only push the activity away from our servers. It will just push it onto the DEX and onto real blockchains. And I don't see how those rules solve that problem.
Where's Binance based today?
So we
Where
actually,
are your jurisdictions?
So we have a few fiat exchanges, so Jersey, Singapore, Malta, Uganda, and a few more coming up. But Binance.com, we are actually not based anywhere.
But you are also launching Binance America.
Yes.
Tell us about that.
So we have tried to actively neglect the U.S. market because of the unclear regulations, and it's just a tough market to work in.
Yeah, you've told U.S. customers that they will no longer be serviced as of this month.
So to be honest, our position is we have never serviced them. It's just that now we're launching a U.S. exchange, we're becoming more strict with our checks, so that we are actually getting stricter of saying strongly not servicing them. So we have never, from our position, we have never serviced them. But we do recognize that U.S. has a very unique set of regulatory rules, to the sense that they actually require foreign businesses to actively block their own citizens. So, for example, instead of blocking their own citizens themselves, they require foreign businesses to do that individually. So now that the burden is on the foreign businesses, that's fine. We'll do it. We want to be compliant with every regulatory policy. And U.S. is a big market, so we do want to start to attack it, or at least be active in that market and be able to provide our service.
It's a very mature market. It's a very sophisticated market, you could say. And if you could tap into that liquidity pool, what kind of liquidity can you bring into the cryptocurrency market through Binance America?
So, yes, U.S. is a very mature market, and there are already a few pretty good exchanges there. They run quite well. They have relatively large volumes and user visits. They have real volumes, etc. We do see U.S. as a technology innovator, Silicon Valley. So the technology innovation is very strong. But the U.S. regulations are right now unclear. It's hindering the growth of the industry. So we hope to provide our services, be able to offer more coins, etc. But we will come to limitations. But we will comply with whatever the rules are, and play with the rules there.
How important do you think then is to provide institutional grade trading platform and technology, not only for Binance America but globally?
I think for America it's especially important because there's a very large proportion of money, institutional money, in the U.S., whereas the rest of the world, the proportion is much smaller. I think U.S. has that mature institutional money management industry, given the mature regulations. Whereas, for example, if you look at a country like China, nobody trusts anybody to manage their money. So even billionaires or multi-billionaires, they trade themselves. So it's more of a larger retail market in other places of the world. But we do want to service both. But just to clarify, the U.S. entity is run by a separate entity, BAM Trading Services. So they have full control over how they want to run it. We're the technology provider, so we do provide the technology for both retail and institutional trading.
And you just launched Binance Futures.
Yes.
Tell us about what this means for liquidity here and what kind of products you're going to be providing to the market.
So we did that based on user feedback. A lot of users want to keep their funds in one place so that they can trade spot market, margin, and futures contracts. So our future contracts the contract structure is a little bit different from the other exchanges. So we're not in direct competition with them, but we want to be able to provide that service as a comprehensive package to our users.
So the users in your mind are more retail investors?
To be honest, we have both retail and institutional investors now, and the institutionals are pretty big already. Even outside of the U.S.
I mean, in terms of creating a market, and tapping into a market and almost creating products that work for them, that work for your retail consumers. This is still a very complicated instrument. We're talking about derivatives, we're talking about futures. How are you thinking about simplifying that and making it understandable for a retail investor? Sure.
So, number one is there are many great examples to learn from. So there's already many evolutions of futures contracts, like the perpetual contracts right now are probably the easiest to understand. So that's probably the one we're going to start with first. So this way we leverage other people's educational efforts to the industry. So we learn from others. We do intend to keep simplifying the product structure and the user experience as well. So I think the industry generally they're pretty familiar with the futures contract. So we fortunately for this case we actually don't have to do a lot of education, whereas for example for the DEX we have to do a lot of education. So this case we're providing a new product based on customer demand. So they already know what they want. So they can give us a lot of detail, and we already have selected beta testers giving us feedback. So futures is a little bit easier actually. Even though the system-wise you got to do like liquidations, risk management, etc. But the product design itself is actually fairly standard.
What do you think of Facebook Libre?
So this one. So I think I'm the inclusive guy. So I think in this industry where we promote freedom, we should have the tolerance or the acceptance for anybody to come in because that's freedom. So I always welcome any company, any coin to come to our industry as long as it's not a scam. I do not think Facebook is a scam. I don't think Mark Zuckerberg needs to sort of raise $2 billion and disappear. He's already way beyond that. So, and the other factor I judge project is by number of users. So I think they will have a large number of users.
2.7 billion.
Yeah, so that's like a couple hundred times than our entire user base for this industry. So I think the fact that they can reach 100x users into crypto is a great thing.
Do you think the conversation has shifted as a result of Facebook's announcement of the Libre project?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So now all of a sudden all the regulators are, especially all the US regulators are targeting them. And then even the international regulators are targeting them because they're so big.
So the heat is off you?
Actually, so far we have never had any major issues with any regulator. So we're actually never in any heated position. When this heat, we back off, right? So we don't try to fight. But if there's one organization in the world that can sort of have a negotiation, have a conversation with in a strong position with regulators, which company would that be? That'd be Facebook. And also, if Facebook, like I don't want to age discriminate, but if Facebook had a traditional leader, they may not be so receptive to crypto. But Zuckerberg is a guy who's very technology-driven, technology background, also relatively young, so higher acceptance to new technologies. He obviously likes this cryptocurrency technology. Whether he's true crypto or not, that's a debate for the true heart, like the theoretical guys. But I think we're very lucky to have the largest organization in the world pushing crypto for us.
Crypto as a digital asset or true decentralization, that's a debate that we'll see unfold over the next year. Yeah. But are you going to be participating with Facebook Libre? Does Binance want to have a business relationship, participate in the governance, participate as a node?
Sure. So I generally don't comment specifically on our working arrangement with any particular coin, project, or company, even if it's Facebook. But in general, we will adopt a very neutral position because we're the exchange, right? So we're the liquidity provider. So we want to work with everybody that helps the industry. So, and we do think that getting users into this space, regardless of how decentralized, whether it's 1% or 100%, we just want to get users in. So I think any project that can help to do that, we will generally be very supportive. So as a general stance, I think we will be fairly supportive.
Which leads me to ask you this question, because it was very controversial when you pulled BSV off your exchange.
Sure.
This is well, you tell me about it.
Sure.
How did this all come about?
So I think basically, I think everybody I talk to in the industry know that Craig Wright is not Satoshi, right? So that's a clear fraud. So that's lying. So that's very different from Libre, where the company may have privacy issues, etc. There may be some concerns about that. It's overpowered, but that's not nothing. But this in BSV.
Do you think that lie undermines the value of BSV?
I think absolutely. So so we can't tolerate a person that's lying to be Satoshi Nakamoto, the leader of or the creator of Bitcoin. So that's just a pure fraud. And we said, okay, enough is enough. And he's suing people, etc. I said, enough is enough. And also, even though I didn't do a poll on Twitter, but when I said enough is enough, that tweet is the highest liked tweet. It got like 14,000 likes within like a day. So basically, the community have already voted. The community have strongly supported that decision. So it was a very easy decision.
So the decision still feels arbitrary. Is there a process? That's number one. Or is the process really listening to the community and what they want? And or did you learn that possibly this is not going to be the first nor the last of what is a, I'm not going to characterize it as a toxic token, but some would say, how do you in future deal with other toxic tokens?
Sure.
So what is the process? Is it arbitrary? Is there a process internally? How do you do that?
So yes, we do have a process internally, of course. So again, we evaluate projects constantly, even after they're listed. And if we see there's fraud, if we see there are shenanigans going on, or if we just feel that the project is no longer developing the product and it's no longer valuable, so we have a list of criteria that we do evaluate on a constant basis. Even though I didn't do a poll on Twitter, but the community response was very overwhelmingly clear. So we do listen to the community a little bit, but we don't really discuss our listing and delisting too much with the community because it always causes a debate. Because for every coin, there's some holders. And for every coin, there's some haters. So it's not so much up to the community debate, especially on Binance.com. So it is the Binance.com's decision. But over the long term, Binance's success depends on keeping the good coins, good projects listed, and removing the bad coins. So there will be turnover over time, and they will continue to be delisting in the future.
Well, there's no doubt. Not only are you very influential in the community, one could say, as a result, very powerful as well because of the ability to either list on Binance or not really could be make or break for a project, right? How do you personally deal with that kind of criticism, deal with that kind of perception of power? How do you personally think about it for yourself?
So I think for me it's very simple. I don't have any pressure. I don't have any egos. I'm not trying to demonstrate I can flex my muscle or anything. I actually don't think we have a lot of power, to be honest. Because if we abuse the power a few times, then we lose that power. Then people are going to move to other exchanges. So we continually hold to our ethical standards where we want to find good projects, list them, help them grow. So that's very simple. So it's not so much that we try to use that power. I actually don't view it as power. We have a responsibility to help the industry grow. It does come down to, there will be some debates because it comes down to a subjective opinion. We list a relatively small number of coins, 150-ish, out of like a few thousand or that's existing, or maybe more that have ever existed. We do have a short-term influence on the projects. We give them access to a very large number of users. We increase their liquidity, usually increases their price in the short term. But long term, their price depends on the project. So there are a lot of cases where, for example, somebody will hold a small coin and they want to list on Binance, and because we didn't list it, they'll say, no, we're biased, we're abusing our power. But we look at it from a very neutral, broad basis. There's a small number of coins listed on Binance.com. We will continually to increase it, try to increase it. We are actually actively looking for projects that meet our listing criteria. But understand that also Binance.com is a big exchange now. So we have, for a small project to get listed on Binance.com, we actually cause a lot of fluctuations in the price. You may go like this and then come down. That's not good. So we actually encourage for small cap projects to list on other smaller exchanges first, or on Binance DEX first. And this way we can monitor and see how the price performs on a smaller exchange. And on the smaller exchange, the number of users rushing in are smaller, and there's less impact to their natural price. So there's a natural price discovery. And when they can list on multiple small exchanges and performing well, we say, well, great, then now we can list it too. It's not just listing on small exchanges, and then the progress on developing products, etc. We look at that through time. So it's not just about one listing application, no response, we will reject it. It's not like that. So you should continue to resubmit every month, show your progress, engage with the community, build your product. So even if we don't list you today, 6 months later, your mainnet is live, a bunch of guys using your chain, we'll list it. So we never really reject outright. Sometimes you just have to be patient. So I don't view us as having a lot of power. We have to list good projects. We actually beg. So for example,
it's almost like you're a ratings agency.
Yes.
Of projects.
Well, so yes,
the quality of projects that you decide to list ultimately on Binance.com.
Yes. So we basically we have to have an opinion. in this industry, we have to have our own opinions. So yes, it is a subjective opinion, but at the end of the day, if you have millions of users, we have no choice to list you. You don't have to talk to us. You don't have to beg us. If you have millions of users, you will most likely be listed.
How many users do you have right now?
We have actually I haven't checked, about 15 million users. So we actually don't really check the user numbers. For exchanges, the registered user numbers are not as important as active user numbers.
Active users then, how many do you have?
It varies on a day-to-day basis, some like from 500,000 to 1 million or 2 million every day. So it's pretty active user base.
And where are they from around the world?
Very spread out. Basically, if you take a global GDP chart, that's kind of our user spread. It's actually so there's a few abnormal situations, but in general, it's like very corresponding to the GDP distribution.
Are you taking a look at nations like North Korea and Iran? And are you thinking geopolitically whether or not you should be providing liquidity and or an exchange capability to investors there?
So for Binance.com, we are fairly respectful for the U.S. regulators, so that we do respect the sanctioned country list. We don't service those sanctioned countries. We really don't have a choice. As a centralized service, we're open to attack from the regulators. We need to be fully compliant. So we can't service those guys. But Bitcoin doesn't distinguish any of those countries. Anybody can use Bitcoin
in a truly decentralized way. But as you said, it is centralized, and you've been subject to hacks.
Yeah.
2 months later, after the huge hack that happened at Binance, what are the lessons learned?
Yeah.
How did you deal with it then? What was your reaction when you found out that it happened, personally, professionally?
Well, so personally, first it's like kind of fuck, right? But then you always have this in your mind that sooner or later you'll have an instance that will happen. There's no 100% security, right? So luckily it was they found a loophole in our withdrawal process. So it's not that they attacked our hot or cold wallet. It's that they found a loophole that they weakness that they leveraged. So it is very unfortunate, but we got over the amount very quickly. The amount, it is a big amount. It's $40 million back then. But we got over that quickly. That's equivalent to one of the burns we did in 1 quarter, so 20% of our profit. So it's okay. It's like basically
you made whole. You made everybody whole.
We made everybody whole right away. It was very clear.
How important is that?
I think that's super important. So I think if you look at some of the exchanges that survived hacks, including Bitfinex, for example, they made people whole every time. So I think for exchange credibility point of view, you can have weaknesses, you can have instances, but you gotta do the right thing. So that's really, really important.
You gotta have a track record.
Yeah.
You're establishing that track record right now.
Unfortunately, yes, we are. Fortunately, yeah. So, unintentionally, yes, we are. So, but I think also what's really stressful was we got to make sure that we covered everything. So there's no other holes. So we beefed up our security really heavily. We did probably about 6 months to a year of work within that week. So that was the stress that was the stressful part, is getting all of that jammed in and making sure everything's secure. So I would say, given that, it's probably a blessing in disguise. We are actually not much more secure than before, and probably than almost every other industry player. We're using some really advanced security techniques now that would have taken much longer to implement. But because this happened, we dropped everything. And the team doesn't have any of these objections anymore. Because before, if I tell them don't do anything for 3 months, we're just going to roll this one thing that's related to security, the business guy is going to complain, everybody's going to complain. But when this happens, just stop everything, get this in, and over time, just cram everything. There's no discussions anymore. And some of my team feedback was, before, a discussion could take like an hour just to introduce what the concept is. Now the discussion is 2 minutes. We're going to do this. Yes, let's do it. So it's actually good, actually. So it is costly, but it's not a cost that we couldn't really afford. So yeah. Fine, it's not cheap, but we got over that.
So what keeps you up at night now as CEO of Binance?
So actually, I do sleep quite well at night again. So for about a month or so, I was like sleeping not so well. But I do sleep pretty well. I'm no longer involved in daily operations of the exchange. I spend a lot of my time on the exchange part of the business, just sort of overlooking things. But nothing depends on me, which is really good. So we've got a really good team that's carrying out with operations. So I can go on conferences and disappear for days or hours or days. Things will just progress. So.
Well, you're doing one very important thing, which is representing Binance in the future and the vision.
Yeah.
You're offering an IEO.
Yeah.
Okay. Tell us about the IEO. Why do you want to provide this market an opportunity to essentially buy a share in Binance?
Sure. I think for me, the blockchain fundraising as a general concept is a key killer app. And that's one of the killer apps. Well, that's probably the killer app that we want to focus Binance energy on. So there's a few different aspects to it. So we want to be able to invest in our industry, invest in startups that will build this industry bigger. Because we provide liquidity, we have a user base, we're sort of the fundamental, we're the TCP/IP level. But we're not the Amazon. We're not those guys. So we do need other projects to build this. So we have Binance Labs, which invest in them. And then we have Binance Launchpad, which help them raise money. But in addition to money, they also raise user awareness, brand awareness. And the initial user base is really, really critical. After Binance Labs, we typically list on Binance.com, giving them liquidity and also more users. That helps the projects tremendously. And if the project does well in those regards, most likely they're issuing a token on Binance Chain, which increases the utility for Binance Chain.
And the ecosystem then increases the value of Binance.
Of BNB, right? So right. And Binance. So I'm actually much less concerned about the valuation of Binance itself, like as a traditional company.
But more BNB, you're interested in that?
I think the future is a currency, like it's BNB. It's BNB value that we want to drive. So we're building everything into BNB, all about adding more utility into BNB. I think this is the thing that we can do really well. We can add a lot of value to projects, we can bring a lot of value to users, and we can bring a lot of value to this industry, which will then make ourselves bigger.
What was the thought process then offering lottery to those who are interested in IEO? And explain how you're providing that to the community.
Sure. So. There are conflicting considerations to design IEOs. We want the total raise to be small. Or we want the total market cap or the total valuation of the project to be low. So this way, it's cheap. It's not cheap. It's a good investment for the investors so that they have room to grow. We don't like overly arrogant projects like, okay, I'm a $200 million project. Oh, I want to raise $1 billion. So, those big projects, when they list, they go down. It hurts investors. So we want to keep the valuation low. So usually we raise like, say, $3 to $8 million, which is actually a really, really small amount of money considering the user base we have. But then everyone wants it, right? Then we have the problem. Everyone, when we do the first come, first serve, everyone rushes in, and our system crashes. Nobody can get it. The first few guys get all of it, and then so you create all that kind of issue. And we can do an even split. Say, okay, everybody gets a little piece, but then everybody gets 10 cents worth of. You have over distribution. Then it's basically like dust.
Yes.
So that's not good either.
Yes.
So we have to come somewhere in the middle where we say, okay, now let's do a lottery. So you have to put some BNB. You have to have some cost. So you have to take some risk, and then we do a lottery draw. So that's kind of a middle ground. So that's just more of a distribution mechanism optimization. It's not so much that we designed from the beginning, that we saw the problems and then we had to come up with a solution, and that's the solution we came up with.
Well, who are the people who are coming up with the solutions? Are they economists? Are they mathematicians? Are they technologists? Are they developers? Are they everybody above and beyond?
No, we don't have that kind of specialization yet. So it was just like a few guys who in the office just said, look, second time the system crashed because everyone rushed in and everybody was unhappy. We actually did the lottery system even for the Binance ICO ourselves. So brand new ICO on brand new website on Binance.com 2 years ago, 2017. We actually did the lottery. We actually did 3 different systems. The first system we did was register to full allocations. The first however many registrations get, actually about 2,500 registrations gets a allocation for the Binance coin. So that got us to 9,000 users in one day on a brand new website. So we had that system, the first come first serve registration allocation thing. And then the second phase, or even the Binance ICO, was we had the lottery. Works slightly differently, but concept is simple. But the detail is slightly different because there's no holdings of Binance Coin, etc. But we had it back then. So this is not a completely new concept we just dreamed up of. We actually don't need economists to tell us this. The lottery system exists in traditional financial markets on the Chinese stock exchanges for IPOs, etc. So there's a lot of concepts we can copy from different markets. Even the futures, perpetual futures contracts are not inventions in crypto. They exist in Chinese futures markets way before crypto. So it's just more like we just gotta look around and copy stuff that works.
And that's the beauty of innovation, which is really iteration of previous systems that work or learning from those that have failed. So when you take a look at the history of you, CZ, in blockchain, in crypto, how have you evolved? How have you iterated?
I think I've evolved quite a bit, and I'm still evolving. I'm still learning. I think overall, so for example, before I joined the blockchain industry, I was always working in financial IT, like specifically related to trading system, exchanges, Bloomberg Tradebook futures. So always in this market. But I was more of a programmer technologist. So after, I was an entrepreneur, but I was still on the technology side. And after coming to this industry, I first went to blockchain.info to learn sort of more about the crypto stuff. So I wasn't confident enough to just say, okay, I'm going to jump in and do my own exchange right away, even though that idea was there. I did join some other exchanges to learn the ropes, so it took me a while to actually work up to building Binance, right? And we got really lucky as well. We had the right timing, the right team, the right product, and the right market conditions. So got really lucky there. But I think we're still learning. The market's still changing very quickly. We're still changing very quickly. But luckily, I think we got a fundamental base that's pretty strong now, and we got a really strong team. So I'm still learning. I'm still evolving.
You're at the top of the food chain, but as they say, it can all go away tomorrow. Where do you think Binance could go, and what do you think you would do if it all went away tomorrow?
I think number one, it could go to the decentralized exchange direction, which hopefully we have a bet. We have our own sort of bet, or we have our own experiment product there, which I think is very competitive. So hopefully that will work. Even if that doesn't work, we'll try multiple times to make it work. So we may do it again if that doesn't work. I think the decentralization direction is definitely a direction it will go. It will actually move faster if the regulations are more strict, because basically if the regulations are more strict on the centralized exchanges or the centralized service providers, all the volume is going to go to the decentralized world, and we want to be ready for that. So that's why we're spending a lot of time building decentralized technologies, even though now most of our revenue, the business is good here, but we want to be prepared for the future. In a few years, I hope to be able to be irrelevant to Binance. I can do anything I want. I can be Twitter all day, and then everybody carries on with Binance, and I would become irrelevant. I'll make a few personal investments here and there, travel the world, and maybe, I don't know, invest in AI, look at some other technologies, etc. I'll find something to do.
You know what's interesting about blockchain, as you take a look at the incubators and the projects, is the blockchain potential plus other technologies. So back to the cybersecurity, which you've enforced and you've made whole. But they're going to come again. And quantum technology, quantum computing is right around the corner, which would blow cybersecurity protocols that currently exist out of the water. How are you preparing for that day?
I'm not too worried about that because mathematically, encryption is always much easier than decrypting. So when there's quantum computers, the current encrypting algorithm may not work, but there will be a new algorithm that will be much easier for the quantum computers to encrypt and much harder for them to decrypt. So it will just be another encryption algorithm that will be invented. It's just mathematical formulas. I'm not an expert anymore, but there are far smarter people than me that will figure that out. So I'm not too worried about it. Mathematically, it's always harder to pick a lock than to lock it. So there'll be some mechanism, and I think. When there are quantum computers which have very high computational power, and we will have much better speed, much better user experience on, for example, DEX, and we will be able to handle large trading volumes on DEX. So I think it will help decentralization. The more computing power there is, the better.
3 blockchain forecast predictions for 2020.
Prediction is easy without a time frame attached.
All right, no time frame.
So I always
three blockchain predictions from CZ.
Sure, 2 of them are very, very easy. I forecast there will be 1,000 blockchains and 1 million tokens. So that's why we're very focused on the token market. And hopefully we'll be a big player. We will remain to be a relevant player when that happens. So those are the 3 predictions.
So I've only counted 2. One more.
One more. Okay, the industry is going to get 1,000 times bigger for sure. And so will be the price, I think. I really hate to make price predictions, but I think in general the industry will get much, much bigger.
Bigger, smarter, more talent. And final question for you. Yeah. You know, China is clamping down on cryptocurrency. They love the technology, but they're clamping down on even one being able to be a node without government approval. Do you think this kind of environment really hampers innovation?
Actually, I don't think so. To be honest, it actually forces, it actually invokes innovation to try to fight it. So it actually pushes for more decentralized innovation. And it pushes for more stealth technologies. So more privacy coins, dark pools, you push everything to be non-traceable. So it actually increases the speed of that, which actually makes the regulations or the control aspect of it irrelevant. So I actually think what the regulators should do is actually be more open to it. Say, look, welcome to the centralized exchanges. It's free. It has a lot of freedom, low limitations. Come and use it. And in that way, they actually have the data that they want, because otherwise they'll have zero data. So China's just a really tough market to regulate because it's such a big country with such a big population. So they can't regulate on case by case basis. So in smaller countries, they can have a very relaxed regulation and look at projects on case by case basis. There's only a handful of projects they need to look at. In China, there'll be like, I don't know, 1 million projects. You can't do that. So China typically have very tough regulations, which is kind of unavoidable. But China is very pro technology innovation, so they will figure something out. If you look at the internet, China is probably the only country that successfully kind of limited the internet very severely, but still had a very thriving internet industry. So that's super smart. Whether they can do this for blockchain space, I'm not sure. I hope they can. But we only see step by step, so we'll just continue to build.
CZ, continue to build. Thank you so much for joining us on Forecast.
Thank you so much.
All right. I really loved that interview with CZ. I thought he was candid. I thought that he was really forthright, and I loved his vision. And I also like the fact that he saw the future of Binance without him, which is the sign and the mark of a great leader. If you like this video, hit like, share, and make sure you comment. What do you think? Do you think that he could ever be irrelevant? Let us know what you think. And head over to www.Forkast.News for more exclusive videos, more engaging conversations, and thoughtful deep dive analysis on this emerging technology called blockchain. Until then, I'm Angie Lau. See you then.